So welcome back to the channel, everybody. I know it's been a while, but here is my review in 2023 for a book that I read about 20 years ago, something like that. It's Eragon. I'm talking about Eragon. So Eragon, for those of you unaware, was a book that came out back in the early 2000s, and it kind of shaped my fantasy reading life at the time. So I hadn't read a whole lot at the time. I was focused on sports and video games, and I wasn't much of a reader, but I had read Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and then Eragon. And it honestly blew me away when I first read it. I absolutely fell in love with it. I love dragons and fantasy worlds, and it was everything that a teenage me wanted at the time. I was also super impressed by the fact that Eragon was written by Christopher Paolini at such a young age. And yes, you could get mad and butthurt about the whole fact that his parents owned a publishing company and helped him get started. But if the book was terrible, it wouldn't have been picked up after that. It wouldn't have sold as many copies as it did. And I don't think it would be as popular as it was and is today. So I went back and read it at the age of 33 now to see if it held up to what a young, impressionable mind of mine thought at the time. And I'm happy to say that it did. Yes, it is super derivative of an awful lot of things. I don't think he was subtle in a lot of areas of where he was pulling things from, whether it be Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time or, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. I mean, it's right there on the page. Like, it's very obvious what he was pulling from almost completely and directly at times, but that's okay. I feel like it didn't bother me because, one, I like a lot of the traditional tropes that he does pull from, and he pulls all of the fantasy stops here. I mean, elves, dwarves, dragons, Urgles, which are basically orcs. You have essentially Murdral and the Shades. There's a ton of stuff here. I mean, the hero's journey, literal farmer turned hero, dragon rider. Like, yeah, it's not the most original thing in the world, but it's incredibly consumable, and I adored it then, and I still adore it now. And maybe that's nostalgia speaking, but I think he did a very good job for the task that he took on, which is writing an epic fantasy at such a young age. Down to the fact that he was writing his own languages in the book, whether they're sensible or not, I don't know, because I don't know his interpretation of reading Dwarven or Elvish. But the fact that he did that is pretty damn impressive. And obviously, this being kind of geared towards a younger audience, it gets violent as hell. There's definitely some pretty gnarly shit in this book that I didn't remember at the time. Like when they get to Yazwak at first, and there's just piles of bodies and dismembered bodies everywhere, and it's pretty graphic. It was more graphic than I anticipated. I just forgot that it was that in-depth and detailed in the descriptions. But Eragon, as far as character work is concerned, they're not the greatest. I mean, Eragon's a pretty standard, reluctant hero, started as a farmer. He, meets Braum, who's probably the most fleshed out character of the book, at least for a while, because he's the old wise mentor that, reveals the secrets of the world and kind of gives you a lot of the exposition that you need to understand what's going on. Outside of Braum and Eragon, Angela's a super intriguing character, and there's clearly more to her than is given to you right away. You get to meet, the elves, the dwarves. You get to meet the Varden, who are essentially the rebels of this world. What I do like about his characterization of the enemies is that King Galbatorix, who ultimately, is set up to be the big bad because he's the, evil emperor, he's not really in the book directly. He's talked about, he's hinted at, but he's not in your face on every page as this imminent threat, because it's doing a good job of building up towards that final confrontation, which will ultimately, result in whatever happens with Algacia. I think what Paolini did do well in this, though, was just pretty basic world building and like map creation. The fact that he has ancient lore that is sprinkled in a little bit throughout the book of just the history of the world, fleshing out these different races, fleshing out their language and their habits and their wants and their likes and their dislikes. I think he did all that very well. I think the writing itself is efficient. It's basically pretty straight to the point. So his prose isn't anything to write home about, but neither is Brandon Sanderson's, because he is just very direct and to the point and he knows how to write exactly what he's telling you. It's not this big flowery epic, painting a sweeping picture like Robert Jordan would of walking through a forest, but you don't always need that. And I can appreciate a shorter fantasy novel here that will grow into a larger fantasy epic as the books go on, because even just Eldest compared to Eragon is already significantly and noticeably longer, and they just continue on that way up through Inheritance. So while the characters didn't blow me away, and much of it is derivative of other fantasy that we're all familiar with, I think it's still effective, and it was a fun read, and I don't think it's any big detriment to the book that, you've read other fantasy, so you've read this, sure, but also he has room to grow from here. Like Robert Jordan got a lot of the same critiques for Wheel of Time, because Eye of the Storm was very derivative of Fellowship, and I think he knew and owned that, and people are very aware of that, but give it time to breathe and progress, and it won't just be a copy and pasted version of classic fantasy. I think what he did well in the limited page count too here is the amount of action and set pieces that you are taken through. The entire underground city where the Varden are and that battle that takes place is just super duper awesome. The imagery painted there is great, and it bugs the shit out of me that they did it so little justice in the movie. It was so bad. It's like, imagine Minas Tirith, and then you get there and it's just like a bunch of huts made of sticks and stones, and it looks like shit. That's what the movie did. That's not what it looks like. It's also, I know I wasn't blown away by the character work, but honestly, Eragon's relationship with Saphira and how they grow together and are linked in their minds and talk to one another, that bond that was created is probably one of the strongest things in the entire book. And I think he did a fantastic job of making it feel realistic and making that relationship and partnership feel real. And honestly, I think it's Eragon's best relationship in the entire book. I think his relationship with Brahm is good as well, but his link with Saphira and their inner workings of their minds and just their kind of internal dialogue with one another, because obviously she's not speaking English outright, but they can communicate via their minds, and it's just done really well. And I don't think that translated great to the film either, but it works in the book, and it works really well. I think as far as the plot is concerned and the pacing of the book, it's paced really well. He does not waste any time dropping you right into the thick of it. Yeah, I mean, Eragon finds Saphira's egg very early on in the book, like within the first couple of pages. It's not this long, drawn-out thing. So he cuts right to the main meat of the story rather quickly, which I appreciate. And I think overall, the story is paced very well. I'd say there was one part of the book in the little docking town or the harbor town, whatever the situation was, kind of slowed down a little bit, but it wasn't for that long. And while it did feel relatively like a side quest, I don't think it detracted much from the story. It was just kind of slowing down before ramping back up toward what is inevitably the big battle of the book, which I think he did really well also. If you've read fantasy before or you've watched Star Wars before, I mean, it's a pretty simple plot so far, at least. Farmer finds mysterious egg in the woods, and it happens to be a dragon, and he becomes a dragon rider, and you're moving toward, you have the wise old wizard character that teaches you about the world and is, more than meets the eye, and you run into the bad Urgles of the society, which are essentially orcs, and you have to eventually overthrow the big bad king that's, terrible for the world. And that's where this is building up towards. And you have, of course, as most fantasy does, a big epic battle, which I've mentioned a few times already, that I think was just really well done. You have some great character moments there. The battle is well written and realized, and I think picturing it in my mind just worked really well for what he gives you on the page. So hats off to you, young Paolini, for writing a pretty damn cool battle scene, especially just where it takes place. It was just so well done. Overall, I just have to say I really genuinely enjoyed it then, and I genuinely enjoyed it now. No, it's not going to surprise you. I think you could kind of anticipate a lot of the things that are going to happen throughout, but that's fine. It was written pretty well. It was engaging. It was entertaining. And even if it's derivative, I still enjoyed it. So that's a thumbs up from me for Eragon. I'm going to continue reading on the series. because I don't actually think I finished it initially as a kid. I got like 2.5 books in, and then for some reason just stopped. It was probably high school. I don't know. I was doing other stuff. But I'm intrigued and eager to continue on this time around and read it all the way through, and then get to Murtaugh, which just came out recently, which kind of sparked my interest again to reread this. That plus the illustrated edition that I showed in the beginning, because it's gorgeous and I love nice editions of books. So Eragon gets a thumbs up from me. I think you all should read it. And I think it's also a great book for younger readers, of course, to get into fantasy, because it's much shorter than a lot of epic fantasy. And that's far more digestible to read a couple hundred pages of a book, as opposed to everything nowadays. It's like 1,000 pages long and intimidating as hell. Eragon's great. So go read it. It's great.